Hello and welcome to Netreo All Systems Go, the Netreo user get-together for 2022, also called Nugget. This presentation is called Monitor Everything with Netreo and Unlocking Discovery. I'm Chris Sternberg. I'm a senior product manager at Netreo. I joined the product management team in February of this year. My core responsibilities are for the Netreo infrastructure monitoring solution, as well as internal process improvement. I've got a background in business and computing with an MIS degree from the University of Texas at Austin. My experience includes software, web, and database development in workflow approval, accounting, and identity management. I've been in PM for nearly a decade, focusing on SaaS platforms for software inventory and license management, and of course, network infrastructure and application performance monitoring. My interests include travel. This picture is of me in Turkey in June of last year. One of my best friends who I met on my first internship abroad in Malta is Turkish and lives in Istanbul. Met him a long time ago, right after college. I also got a couple dogs. Used to do a bit of dog training as an intern, like classic cars and motorcycles, sci-fi, cyberpunk, fantasy books, all that kind of stuff. If you have any questions during the session, just want to call out that there is live chat available where I can answer any questions that you have. And I encourage you to connect with me and other Netrons through the Nugget platform. And if you'd like, you can also connect with me on LinkedIn. So now that you've got a bit of my background, let's talk about today's session agenda for Monitor Everything and Unlocking Discovery. This session will go over the current processes for deployment, installation, and configuration, and customization. Then we'll touch on some high-level goals for Netreo monitoring as a whole, including do-it-yourself monitoring and our desire to create a Netreo monitoring community where we can share and collaborate on our monitoring needs. And finally, I'll discuss what's most likely one of the most important matters to you, as it is to myself, about these steps that Netreo and the product team is taking to meet these goals. So we'll talk about everything from out-of-the-box monitoring coverage for smoother deployment, enhancement to our cloud libraries, and other monitoring expansion. So before getting into the meat of the presentation, I'd like to level set with you on what I mean by monitor everything. So, if data is exposed via an endpoint in virtually any format, then we should be able to provide monitoring of that endpoint, or provide the means by which you can create your own custom monitoring. So the foundation, the nuts and bolts for this monitoring customization and adding new monitoring into Netreo, that's already there. So this effort is primarily focused on providing this ability to our users in such a way that defaults are plug and play and customization is straightforward and verifiable. So now, after kind of that intro, let's talk a little bit about the current process for monitoring. There's probably various levels of experience with the Netreo platform. So I just wanted to cover kind of the basics of, these are the various aspects of Netreo and monitoring, how they fit together. How do you go about configuring and also customization and do-it-yourself monitoring? So starting off here on the left, the out-of-the-box defaults that Netreo provides. So when there's a new deployment, we provide out-of-the-box defaults for device types and subtypes, service checks, and device templates, as well as auto configuration rules that just apply to all devices in your environment. So let's kind of get into what those various elements actually are. So device types and subtypes, those tell us what to monitor and how to communicate with it. So essentially, this is then the poller that applies certain kinds of resources, or applies to certain kinds of resources like Cisco switches and routers, specifies which endpoints to collect, and how to interpret the data exposed at those endpoints. Service checks then, these monitor the status of an individual process or resource, such as a specific application or interface, and essentially provide an up or down status. So, these can be those host availability checks for various types of resources, depending on how you can check that that resource is actually available. Ping, for instance, may be a common way to go about that, but that varies depending upon, the device type, such as firewalls, which, usually don't have ping enabled. And, these service checks, they play an integral role in parenting and root cause analysis for incident management. So being able to tell that, if you're getting alerts that a host is not available or a resource is not available, being able to check that parenting and seeing that a parent for that device is also not available helps, link alarms and also suppress notifications and identify the root cause of an issue. Device templates then kind of bring these two elements together to establish monitoring consistency, and they provide the means not only which to interpret whether data is normal, abnormal via static and dynamic thresholds and availability status, but also this is where you provide credentials for accessing the device types and subtypes to which the templates are applied, when to alert and who to notify, log and configuration rules, and also other discovery-related settings. And these are applied via broad hierarchy from global, for all devices down to even a specific managed device. This is pretty rare, but it's available should that specific need arise. And then finally, we've got auto configuration rules. So these are the rules that set various resource parameters for onboarding automation. So when you have all these various elements tied together and the device templates tying it, applying to those device types and service checks, when new devices are onboarded, the auto configuration rules can identify those devices and apply the settings that are needed for monitoring to automatically apply to those devices. So any resource then that is known in the environment can get added to monitoring as soon as it's discovered and verified. So then cloud libraries, we have default out of the box modules that are applied as soon, to a new deployment. Then we have the cloud libraries, which is everything that Netreo has already developed for monitoring. So the device types and subtypes, service checks, and device templates. And so these libraries allow users to extend monitoring coverage by downloading, installing, and configuring these elements, which define these monitoring aspects, to put those together into your template strategy for monitoring your environment as a whole and applying those auto configuration rules for automated onboarding. And then finally, we get to customization and do-it-yourself monitoring. So, there's customization, such as what I discussed a little bit for those device template settings, as well as, which device types and subtypes and service checks those templates are going to use, net new SNMP monitoring, as well as based on how you choose to customize the device templates then, using the application of service checks and the device types and subtypes, those other settings, you can then also add new auto configuration rules. And as I mentioned, these play that integral role in automating your whole monitoring strategy and putting all the pieces together for new resource onboarding. So now that we've gone through the overview of the current process for monitoring coverage and extension, and kind of this demonstrates just what's possible now and the power behind Netreo's infrastructure monitoring platform. Just want to keep in mind one of the main takeaways here is that having that well thought out device template strategy, that just makes monitoring device settings simple and helps enforce consistency in your monitoring configurations across your entire environment. But if this whole process was perfect, then there wouldn't be a need for a product manager to help identify where we can also make improvements, where we can simplify some of these things, put some workflows in place, more out of the box defaults, and really what this session is all about is being able to put as much of this into our users' hands, and to where development isn't necessarily required for extending monitoring coverage or developing net new monitoring. So let's discuss the goals that we have for unlocking discovery and further opening up monitoring expansion to be able to monitor everything with Netreo. So the main theme here that runs across all these points is how can we get users up and running faster? We want to smooth out that deployment process for new deployments of entirely new instances of Netreo, but also for when you're adding new resources into your environment, getting those into monitoring faster and improving upon those processes as well. And so users, though, is this is everyone from our engineering team and field teams, our support teams, everyone at Netreo that is working on these implementations and enhancements, to our partners and to our customers. So one of the first places that we want to start with getting everyone, getting these deployments, getting our users up and running faster with Netreo is, and where we can add that value the fastest, is to include more out-of-the-box default monitoring coverage. And as I mentioned, we've got lots of coverage and modules in the libraries. And from what we hear from our users and from our Netroans out in the field doing these deployments, is that we want to be able to have as much monitoring in place, kind of 80-20 rule, right out of the box. So that's going to save a lot of time with POCs and get those new deployments up and running a lot faster. So then tied to this as well is that next step of the cloud libraries and being able to make coverage and extension and updates simpler. So this goes into providing more visibility of what coverage is available and new ways to actually monitor. So one of those being open telemetry streaming. So we'll be starting this with Netreo with metrics, and just as an aside, one of our other products is Prefix for code profiling, and there's a developer release of open telemetry or OTel for traces for that. So there's another session on that by our product manager Miranda and Dan, one of our engineers. So then these next two goals, these are closely related, and they focus about what you can do in your local environment. So as a Netreo IAM user, how do you go about customizing and managing monitoring in your environment? And then that all-important next step to unlock discovery by expanding the ability to add net new monitoring yourself without development having to get involved. And then this last one, this is really as much dependent on Netreo as it is on all of you, all of our users, all of kind of the Netreo community, and all of our partners, our customers. But what we want to be able to do is build a Netreo community and provide some means in which to share monitoring expertise across that community, allow anyone using the Netreo infrastructure monitoring platforms to contribute and benefit from what's been deployed, whether that's been developed by Netreo itself or by our customers and our partners. So now let's dive into some detail about the steps that we are taking in order to meet our monitoring goals. So the expansion of out-of-the-box monitoring coverage, this is going to aid in improving that time to value for new deployments and reduce the need to add common or critical monitoring coverage after the fact. This part of the goal is pretty straightforward and is focused on taking what already exists and simply including it by default in a new deployment, making sure that that's all configured so that as soon as devices are added into an environment, they can be added for monitoring. They've got alerting set on them, and that you can then tie in your incident management, your art of configuration, all of those things, but that you're gathering data from those endpoints on which you want to then build and take action. The other part of this goal is the addition of new monitoring coverage, including new formats. So we are regularly reviewing and prioritizing feedback from the field, from our partners, from customers, from all of our users, in order to determine which coverage to add and enhance for which specific resources and models, device types, all of that, from traditional hardware, virtualization, SD-WAN, cloud resources, and services for AWS and Azure, all those resources across the board. And so one entirely new approach, which I just touched on earlier, is telemetry streaming via OpenTelemetry. So, what we're planning currently for Netreo is making that available via Telegraph. So, stay tuned for release notes and other product announcements for both OpenTelemetry metric ingestion, as well as other announcements in these areas for expansion of out-of-the-box coverage and additional formats that we're developing. So then for cloud library enhancements, we have two main objectives here: to provide better visibility into the cloud content so you can find what you're looking for, and to improve change control of this content for simpler management of your local environment. So for visibility, what we're going to be doing is expanding search capabilities to identify monitoring elements for specific resources and device models, so that you can just more easily find what you're looking for without having to download and investigate or try out new device types and subtypes to try to determine what they do, to provide more insight what they do in the cloud itself. And this also includes then providing visibility of more detailed module descriptions, so that you can read through those descriptions, see what does this device type or subtype, what does this poller actually do, which endpoints is it monitoring, which modules is it applied to, and then being able to expose those contents of the various cloud elements that's discussed, the device types and subtypes, service checks, and device templates, to get a better understanding of what it does without that need to download and install it first, and kind of reduce that need for hunting for what you're looking for, or the time that it takes to find what you're looking for, and then implementation of those modules, where you have a clear understanding of what devices to apply it to and things along those lines. So then enhanced change control includes exposing internal processes and safeguards to our end users. This includes internal process improvement and safeguards for our code repositories, as well as extending those to the users of the Netreo platform itself, and how they access and interact with those cloud libraries and cloud library content. So including release notes to know what changed when there's a new update to a module, or when a new module is released, that description of what is this all about. More versioning, more detailed versioning, so that you can compare a current version to a new version that's available in the cloud repository. And that ability then to be able to see what's changed and be able to merge changes or preserve so that you can preserve your local changes and prevent overriding any customization or configuration that you've made in your local environment. So that prior list for out-of-the-box coverage and cloud library enhancements is really more focused on what Netreo provides. Now let's take a look at what you can be able to do then in your local Netreo environment. So the goal to streamline installation and module configuration, this will focus on improvements to download installation and verification that all the necessary pieces are in place, so that you can start collecting, alerting, and notifying on-monitored endpoints. So download and installation, that will be aided by monitoring packages, if you will. So that's going to include those three main elements of device types and subtypes, service checks, and device templates. So we want you to be able to download these as a whole for various types of resources, so you can move on to any configuration and customization beyond just those defaults that Netreo provides with the modules that are available in the cloud repos. In addition, then, we want to provide some automation around the monitoring coverage to help identify any missing or misconfiguration misconfigured components, which have not been installed, properly applied across your environment or configured in order to complete that whole loop of that data collection, alerting, and incident notification. And next, then, we're going to focus on monitoring customization and do-it-yourself monitoring specification. For these, we'll provide better visibility into monitoring configurations available in those cloud repos. So this is for both SNMP and non-SNMP based discovery, and allow you to see exactly what's configured, which endpoints are monitored, and make any adjustments and additions as you see fit once you've installed those components in your local Netreo environment. As part of this, you want to be able to reduce the need for Netreo product and monitoring expertise by providing workflows and verification processes to allow users to make changes and verify that the changes are working as expected. So this also then includes the ability to be able to add new monitoring without the need to reach out to Netreo monitoring development teams to develop new modules and then push those out to the cloud libraries. So instead, we'd like to essentially empower our users, both internal and external, to be able to do this on your own. So this would be an admin function. So for instance, we have this for SNMP, but simplifying those processes for SNMP and non-SNMP based monitoring. So for instance, common ask is for API based monitoring. So this would allow a user to create their own data collection via an API endpoint, set thresholds and service checks, and at least be able to get a local prototype in place in order to aid with the POC, or just be able to see like what's actually available for data collection from this endpoint, get you started and see how do you want to collect this data, how do you want to report on this data, alert on this data, and then take it from there to either build that out further yourself and share that with Netreo and the Netreo community, or then reach out to Netreo development and the product team to be able to say, here, here's something we did. We'd like you to add this to the cloud coverage. Can you verify this for us? And we'd add, do Netreo verification on it and add our own defaults. So all these things, as I mentioned, this is the focus here, is we want to be able to get our users up and running faster. So now the last part, this of the do-it-yourself monitoring, brings us kind of to the final goal that I'd like to share with you today. Monitor everything is a lofty goal, and we can't do it without you, with all of our users. Our Netrons that are out in the field, support, engineering teams, without our customers, our partners, everyone that's involved in this. We want to be able to share what we learn and allow you to also contribute to that environment and benefit from what other people have done as well. And none of this is going to happen overnight, but we've already started on this journey, and we ask that you reach out to the Netreo product team so that we can show off what we're working on, give you those roadmap presentations as well as what's coming, that you can provide your input on what's planned, because none of this stuff is set in stone, and get your insight and feedback on how we're doing. We are committed to the systemic change and to be able to get our users up and running faster with new deployments, with new monitoring. And it's critical as a product team that we get your input. So this brings me to the end of my presentation and really the call to action, which is that we want to hear from you. So please reach out to the Netreo product team. First off, live chat for this session is available now, and in all of these sessions. You can connect with me and other product members via the Nugget platform. And there's also an ideas portal where you can submit ideas for product improvements at ideas.netreo.com. There are links in product on the help pages for the Netreo infrastructure monitoring platform, as well as in Retrace and Prefix to this ideas portal. And just want to encourage you to kind of focus on what problem are you trying to solve. And please do also provide here's ideas and options for potential solutions. And that's really gets the ball rolling and gives us something to focus on, as a product manager, my job is to try to find, simple solutions to complex problems. So that first step is always need to understand the problem and how this applies to the product as a whole, or to the vast majority, of our customers. And then how that also fits into our roadmap and our strategic goals that we have, not just for monitoring coverage extension, but for Netreo as a whole. The product team, we regularly review these ideas, and this helps us, to establish that product focus and the priorities, and also, allows us then to reach out to you for more input on those, the problems, what you're facing, that you can demonstrate that to us in your environment, and that we can discuss, various solutions, go through potential mockups, workflows, things like that, so that we can come up with, a solution that's going to work for you and also for other users of the Netreo platform. And finally, of course, reach out to your customer success managers, your account representatives, ask them for a call with the product team to discuss any improvements you'd like to make, roadmap presentation discussions, and updates on any other projects. Thank you so much for your time today. And just, a reminder again that they're available in the chat. I'm Chris Sternberg, Senior Product Manager here at Netreo. Thank you.